Gauri, Rishika has also joined?
Yes, sir. She's here.
She's here.
Yes, sir, I'm here. Good evening. Good evening, ma'am.
Hello.
So shall we start? 6:30 now. Gauri, over to you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. A very good evening to all of you. On behalf of IIT Dharwad, I, Gauri Subedar, an undergraduate student of Mechanical Engineering in the Department of Mechanical Materials and Aerospace Engineering, extend a very warm welcome to this technical talk, a part of the talk series TREES, Talks on Renewables, Empowering Earth and Sustainability by the Global Center of Excellence in Affordable and Clean Energy at IIT Dharwad. This talk, the second of its kind today, is being hosted on the occasion of the International Women's Day celebration at IIT Dharwad and is being co-hosted by the department. I heartily welcome the guest speaker, Dr. Sarah Barber, who is a program leader Wind Energy at the Eastern Switzerland University of Applied Sciences, Switzerland, founder and CEO, Windspire and Mindspire, and lecturer in Wind Energy at the University of Kassel and University of Oldenburg, Germany, and the University of St. Gallen, Switzerland. Before I formally introduce the speaker, I request Professor Dheeraj to welcome the guest and introduce the Global Center of Excellence in Affordable and Clean Energy, IIT Dharwad.
Thank you, Gauri. Thank you, Dr. Sarah, to warmly accepting this invitation and to speak about this wind energy digitalization chances and challenges. So I would like to introduce the center to you. So I would share my screen. Give me 1 minute. I hope the screen is visible. Yeah. So this center we have recently started at Indian Institute of Technology, Dharwad. IIT Dharwad is the youngest of its institutions set up by Indian government, and these are the national institute of importance, national importance. So this center, which is called a Global Center of Excellence in Affordable and Clean Energy, GCOEAs, and the center is committed to provide various activities. The center is in partnership with our ground level partner, which is Selco Foundation, which is actually a solar energy foundation, where they have around 15 to 20 years of ground level, grassroots level, implementation experiences. The principal scientific advisor to Government of India, the Office of PSA, and Honeywell, who have funded this center for its inception. The center actually provides laboratory facilities, upskilling programs. So we will come up with upskilling program, research and development, as well as the mentorship programs, the outreach activities, and the talk series. The talk series, this is the fourth talk in the talk series by Dr. Sarah. The talk series is called as TREES, which represents talks on renewables, empowering Earth and sustainability. Then we are going to come up with hackathons and challenges for problem statements, which are grassroots level problem statements in the case of affordable and clean energy, and we would give innovation and incubation support as well. The implementation on the grassroots will be provided by Selco Foundation because they have these field experiences and there will be field deployments, and we can get a field data from these innovated products that we would have or house in our center. So currently the center is in establishment of lab equipments. So we have equipments ranging from testing and measurement to fabrication and skill development, as well as R&D lab in power electronics. We are also coming up with a model clean energy village, where we are providing these clean energy solutions and interventions to livelihood applications for village people, where we could demonstrate the use of energy, clean energy here. So the motivation for the center is increasing environmental concerns and climate change issues. So we have Sustainable Development Goals by United Nations, and this center is committed to work on these Sustainable Development Goals. Sustainable Development Goals, there are 17 of them, and they are interlinked. The Sustainable Development Goal 7 is an affordable and clean energy, where we want to increase the universal access to modern energy as well as penetration of renewable energy in the energy domain, improve the efficiency, double the improvement in the energy efficiency, promote access to research, technology, and investments in clean energy, expand and upgrade energy services for developing countries. Also, by 2017, we are committed for net zero emissions, and our center would also work towards that. So center is going to create a platform to design and engineer these kinds of products, which are affordable and clean energy products, and which would enhance the quality of life. You can reach out to the center by using these contact emails that I have on the top of this slide. That is office.ace@iitdh.ac.in and fic.ace@iitdh.ac.in. So thank you again. Thank you for joining this talk, technical talk by Sarah. So I request Gauri to take over.
Thank you, sir. We now request Rishika Patel, a pre-final year undergraduate student of Mechanical Engineering, to display the role of honor women in the Department of Mechanical Materials and Aerospace Engineering, IIT Dharwad. Rishika, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Gauri. I'll present my screen. So good evening, everyone. So I'll quickly go through the role of honor, women in the Department of Mechanical Materials and Aerospace Engineering at IIT Dharwad. So these are some of the girls from all the batches. From 2021, we have Harshita, Shreya, Ikshita, Dirtha, Chitra, Riya, Sanjana. From the 2020 batch, we have Vikshita, Kirti, Divya, Nandini, Dharani, Smasrita, Varsha, Priti, Sangashila, Shrishti, and Shivaranjani. From 2019 batch, there's me, Rishika, Khushi, Princey, Fida, Kanwaldeep, Amruta, Rajeshwari. From the 2018 batch, we have Gauri, Anusha, Ramya, Abhinaya, Himaja. And followed by the girls from 2017 batch, we have Bhavra, and from the batch 2016, we have Pallavi. From the Ph.D. department, we have Hina ma'am, and our professor from the MMAE department, Dr. Meenakshi ma'am. Over to you, Gauri.
Thank you, Rishika. On behalf of the IIT Dharwad community, it's my immense pleasure to introduce the chief guest, Dr. Sarah Barber. Dr. Sarah Barber leads the Wind Energy Research Program at the Eastern Switzerland University of Applied Sciences, Switzerland, and is founder and president of the Swiss Wind Energy Research and Development Network. She is also a lecturer in wind energy at the University of Kassel and the University of Oldenburg, Germany, and the University of St. Gallen and the University of Applied Sciences, Gothenburg in Switzerland. She is also a qualified business coach and runs leadership workshops for engineers in her spare time. She is passionate about improving inclusion in wind energy science and has founded a diversity committee at the European Academy of Wind Energy. Dr. Barber has a joint Master of Engineering degree in Mechanical Engineering from the University of Cambridge in the United Kingdom and the Massachusetts Institute of Technology in the United States of America, and a doctoral degree in Mechanical Engineering on Soccer Ball Aerodynamics from the University of Sheffield in the United Kingdom. She has been active in the research and development of wind energy since 2007, working as a postdoctoral researcher and lecturer at ETH Zurich, a wind energy expert at the Swiss utility BKW Energie AG. Chief Technology Officer at Agile Wind Power AG, and Group Manager at the Fraunhofer Institute for Wind Energy Systems. I now invite Dr. Barber to begin her talk on the challenges and chances of wind energy digitalization. Dr. Barber, I now request you to share your screen. You'd also like to that you may post your questions in the question and answer box.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Please finish, Gary.
No problem.
Okay, thank you very much for that very nice introduction, and thank you also for the introduction to your institute. I think it's really interesting, and I think after I speak, you might understand why I agreed to speak here, because I'm really interested in collaborating with you, and I'm really happy that you've got such a large bunch of girls and women in your institute. So nice to meet you all, and I hope this is interesting for you. I'll start with the talk now. I have a couple of questions that I want to ask you using Mentimeter, and the link is actually in the chat already, but I'll share it again when I get to the question. I was just wondering, actually, before I start, you showed the list of girls in 2021. I guess there are about 10 people. What's the percentage of women to men in 2021?
For 2021, it is 20%.
20%.
Yeah.
That's not too bad. When I studied, it was more like 10%. So.
Mm-hmm. Now, recently we started, Indian government had started to increase the percentage of girls in the IIT. So there are supernumerary seats, we say, available for the girls. That's why the percentage is increasing in our department, especially mechanical.
Cool, I'm glad. Okay, so today I'm going to talk about the chances and challenges of wind energy digitalization. This is because this is one of the areas that I'm quite active in. I'll start by telling you a little bit about myself and what I do, and then I'll talk a bit about digitalization in wind energy, and then I'll go into the chances and the challenges. And then I'm actually going to give you some examples of using the chances to overcome the challenges, and then I'll have a Q&A at the end. You can ask a question in the chat when I'm speaking. I'll try to look, but we can also talk at the end as well. So I'm happy to do both. So I think the introduction was quite thorough. So I don't think I need to repeat everything on this slide. I think everything's been said. I've been in wind energy since 2007 and been doing quite a lot of different things. And in case any of you were wondering, this is where I am. So this is a map here of northern, or let's say middle Europe. So we have the UK here. Actually, this place at the top, Sheffield, is where I did my PhD, and I come from a bit further north than that in the UK. And Switzerland is here, so it's just between France, Germany, Italy, and Austria. And my university is in the eastern part of Switzerland. So this is Zurich. Most people know Zurich quite well. It's the largest city in Switzerland. And Zurich is basically located at the top of this lake. And my university is located in a city called Rapperswil at the bottom of the lake. It's very nice. It's got a campus just on the lake, and you can go swimming there in the summer. So that's where I am. And I just wanted to tell you quickly about the Swiss Wind Energy R&D Network, which I also founded. So as well as founding and leading the research program at the Eastern Switzerland University, I also founded this network. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to bundle Swiss R&D wind energy capabilities for the global wind energy market. Switzerland doesn't have very many wind turbines at all. It's a very small country, and it hasn't got much space, and it's quite difficult to persuade people to install wind turbines near their house. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to develop solutions for the global market. So that means innovative data analytics or measurement technology or different components. But so we're not trying to we're not specifically trying to improve wind energy in Switzerland, but we're looking at the global market, but using Swiss capabilities. So we have different things that we do. We coordinate and write funding proposals. We have some different exchanges and events, and we also have some wind energy courses and student projects. You can have a look at this website here, what we do, www.wedowind.ch. I'll put it in the chat later. So that's basically an introduction to what I'm doing. I'll talk more about the projects later when I talk more about digitalisation. And so on to the topic of digitalisation. So first of all, what is digitalisation? It's a term that's used a lot these days. So according to Gartner, it's the use of digital technologies to change a business model and provide new revenue and value producing opportunities. It's the process of moving to a digital business. We actually have this nice diagram from someone I work with at the Danish Technical University. And it's basically showing if you go from the left to the right, on the left, you have this thing called digitization, which is converting information into digital signals. And on the right, you have digitalization, which is actually this new products and businesses. And so to get from digitization to digitalization, you have to actually make the data do something useful, right? So you have to create these things called digital objects, which are basically data sets. You have to deal with all this big data. You have to somehow manage it. You have to create analytics to do something useful with it. And then you can create your processes and business models. I'm sorry if there's some background noise that you're hearing. I have a large machine in the background, which is slightly disturbing me. So I hope you can hear me okay. And then the next slide is asking the question, why is digitalization important in wind energy? And the reason is because when you're trying to understand how your wind turbine is behaving, you have to measure, right? You have to measure what's going on. And the costs of measurement technology are reducing. And it's also becoming increasingly easy to access this technology. So somebody can buy a sensor or a measurement system and install it themselves much more easily than they used to be able to. There's also been reducing costs of data storage and also the increasing accessibility of cloud solutions, right? So we can all go and buy on Google Cloud or some other cloud data space, and we can store our data quite easily. Also, the costs of computing has reduced a lot, and data science has become more accessible, right? So it's even more easy for us to download an algorithm for fault detection from the internet, or find a paper which is talking about using machine learning to detect faults. And it's become much more popular and much more accessible. At the same time, on the other side, the companies, the wind farm owners, they have got quite a lot of pressure to make quick decisions. They have shareholders who are trying to make money, and they're putting them under pressure to make decisions quickly. And also automated solutions for making decisions are more used. So it's not, less people are making the decisions, and it's being more automated, which means it happens quicker, right? And it means that it's demanded even more. At the same time, you have this increasing pressure to differentiate in the wind energy industry. The political situation is pushing companies to reduce their costs, and there they have to differentiate what they can offer. And so they need to use this measurement, data storage, data analysis, action. They need to use that in order to develop a competitive advantage. So the conclusion of this slide is increasing reliance. There's an increasing reliance upon data and data exploitation to maintain a competitive advantage. And this is why digitalization is becoming so important in the wind energy industry. And so what about the opportunities? So I don't know if any of you know, but the IEA is the International Electrotechnical Association. It has got some international tasks in wind energy. So it's called IEA Wind Task. And there are 50 different tasks running. And it's basically a way to get the entire international community to talk to each other on specific topics. And so there's a new IEA Wind Task 43 called digitalisation. And I'm active in this task, so I'm involved in working and doing some things with digitalisation and wind. And so one thing we did was that we did some interviews with 44 digitalisation experts and asked them what the opportunities were that they saw. And the three biggest opportunities were the opportunities brought by increased data accessibility, because if you have access to more data, you improve data and knowledge sharing and you accelerate innovation. Also, innovative model development. So if you develop more innovative analytics and diagnostics, you can reduce the costs. And the third opportunity was improved communication and open source solutions. So the more people communicate with each other, the more open they are about their solutions, the higher the transparency, and then the better the innovation, basically. And so this graph is just showing a summary of that survey, where you see the 3 points on the bottom. We divided it by research organizations and companies as well. They're the different colors. But basically, that's just showing that these three are the three main opportunities. And what about the challenges? Well, in the same interviews, the main challenges were identified as, okay, how to make this data accessible without losing competitive advantage. It's quite a big effort to make the data easily available and interoperable. The second one is what sort of cultural changes do we need in an organization, and how should we manage them? So, how do we actually bring people to understand the chances of digitalization and actually use them? And then also, how can we share data and knowledge in a standardized manner? If we don't standardize what we're doing, it's very difficult to share stuff. And so these are showing the results again. So these 3 points are shown on the bottom, and then the percentage of respondents. So actually, I would like to ask you a question now. If you're not working directly in a company and you find it difficult to answer this question, just maybe think of somebody you know, or imagine what they might say. There's no correct answer. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share. I think the link is actually already in the chat. I don't know if you can all see the chat. I'm going to put it in again. If you go to this link now, you should see this first question. There's 2 questions, but it's just the first question now. So how could you be encouraged? No, sorry, that's not the right question. That's the second question. That's the first question. What are your main concerns about digitalization? So you should be able to see that. If you go to the link, you should be able to. Okay, you can see it. You should be able to select one. I'm not sure if you can select one or more of the answers. Maybe you can do that now, and then we can look at the results.
So for the first question?
No, it's the first question. Yeah, what are your main concerns about digitalization? Or if you don't have any concerns yourself, what have you heard somebody talking about any of these topics before? Do you know somebody who's involved in digitalization? So you can see the results.
Madam, if I could tell, see, when you say digitalization, it depends for what purpose. For instance, me, a pure science person, I may have some theory which may not lead much if you do pure paper pencil. So I may want to get a numerical solution. There I may write an algorithm, put it. That is where a digitalization may come. But somebody else in mechanical engineering may have a different thing, isn't it? Or if I am in business, where I may want to have some profit or some other thing to be optimize
Yeah.
it. It will be a different thing. So the question is that given a problem, if you make it a mathematical thing, and the next step may be if you want to put it in a computer, you may want to digitalize, isn't it? So in that sense, it will depend upon what problem you are looking at, isn't it?
Sure. Yeah, actually, thank you. That's a good point. This is why actually these questions here, we divided into researchers and companies, because we thought, like, for example, you can see here the difference between the companies and the researchers is actually quite big. I didn't talk about that, but you're right, it's true. And if we're going to do a survey here, I'm not going to take it too seriously. It's just to get us talking about the topics. But you're right. Does anybody else have an answer to give? There's 5 answers, and I can see there's more than 20 people and 26 people in this taking part. So it'd be good to see some inputs from some more people. Otherwise, we'll look at it again later. But anyway, so most people are most concerned about the standardizing the data and the metadata rather than any other topics, which is quite interesting. Actually, that's the standardization is the topic that I work in quite a lot. I actually run a group within IEA Task 43, which is talking about that.
Madam, if I can again interrupt for a moment, what you said is very correct. But if I take a data for astronomical image purpose versus from weather, climate, etc., the way they standardize are very different. So a person coming from one field going to another is pretty difficult, is what I found after going from astronomy to where I am. Anyhow, thank you. What you said.
Yeah, no, it's actually a really good point. And even within the wind energy industry, it's true. So you have some people who make measurements with a met mass, so they're measuring the wind speed. You have some other people who are doing a simulation of the aeroelastics of the generator, of the gearbox wheels. And the data that those two people see is so different that you can't use the same data standard for these two things. So actually that's one of the challenges we're trying to work out in this group. Where do you standardize? Like, how many steps do you go back in order to define a standardization? You actually need some sort of ontology, which is basically describing all the connections between the different types of data. But this is going into a bit too much detail for my talk today, but it's definitely an interesting topic. So thank you for those inputs. I'm going to move on. And so what I'm going to do now is just tell you my top 3 challenges for digitalization and wind energy. So it's not any truth, it's just through my experience from working in these groups and working in the area. It's just what I see as the biggest, as 3 of the biggest challenges. So the first one is to do with data and knowledge sharing. So data is not always accessible or findable. It can have a poor quality. It might not have any metadata. So metadata is the data which is describing the data. So it's telling you which height did you measure at, for example, what sort of sensor did you use. Lots of different data structures and schemas vary, and there's a lot of time needed to clean and prepare data. And so some of the possible solutions are, there's this thing called fair data, which is what lots of people are talking about now. So if you require data to always be fair, which means it's findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable, you can improve data sharing. So if you somehow publish and communicate guidelines or rules for doing this to help people do this, or even tools to help them produce fair data, that would be very useful. About the data structures and schemas, I think it would be good, well, that's what we're trying to do in IEA Task 43, bring everybody together to actually agree on how to define and structure the data. it's very challenging to do that because people don't really have time, so they don't come. And then if the important people aren't there, then there's no point in discussing it. So it's a difficult challenge. And then the third one, possible solution is if we had some sort of knowledge sharing platform to share, maybe we share code for cleaning and preparing data, then we wouldn't have to spend all our time doing that. We could spend our time doing the important part, which is actually earning us some money. So instead of reinventing this process every time, if there's something more open source, it would save everybody time and let them concentrate on the value creating part of their business. So that's the data knowledge sharing topic. And the second topic, in my opinion, is inclusion and collaboration. So it was interesting that nobody mentioned this point when I asked the questionnaire before, but I think it's something that's underestimated by technical people. So it's quite difficult to actually move people into this digitalization because they have to think in new ways. Right? If you're going to start collaborating with people and sharing data, it also requires people to work and learn in different ways. And one solution to that is to communicate or help people understand that people are at the center of this digital transformation. It's not just about the data, it's also about how the people use the data. And then the second difficulty is that, I mean, it's kind of similar, but you also need, as well as having the people understanding, you need new ways to actually share knowledge and collaborate across the whole value chain. And so I think that for that, if there was some sort of sharing or collaboration platform where companies could control access, it would be useful. And people are a little bit scared of sharing because they think they're going to lose competitive advantage. But if you let them control access so that they don't release all their sensitive information, but they can still release some information which could be useful for sharing, then that would be very useful. And also just making the advantages of open innovation more clear. So open innovation is a process which involves bringing lots of people together and developing new ideas. And I think it's not clear to many, especially more old-fashioned thinking people, what the advantages is of doing that. And so I think we could communicate that better. And the third thing is just that people need to develop new ways of working with each other and new skills. And for this, I really think that diversity, equity, and inclusion needs to be improved. I'm just going to talk about this really briefly because it's International Women's Day today. I don't want to talk about it for too long, but I will just briefly say what I think about this. So I don't know what it's like in your country or in your institute at all, but in my environment in Switzerland and in Europe in general, people think that diversity, equity, and inclusion is something for the experts, for the diversity experts to do. So organizations usually have a diversity person who is responsible for improving diversity, and they kind of just they just ignore these problems and they think that this other person can deal with it. But I really think that every one of us, technical people writing code, people measuring, people, engineers, that we need to care about diversity, equity, and inclusion in our everyday work. And the reason I think this is because equality is the basis of a fair society. People work better together if they're happy and feel accepted. It's been proven, there are many studies which show that diverse teams are more productive and good for business. And actually in action, so basically if you or me just don't do anything, this actually weakens underrepresented groups, which I'll tell you about in a second. And I don't think this is something that the so-called diversity experts should only deal with. I think we need to deal with it. So I think every one of us can contribute. So when we're recruiting new people, we make an effort to recruit let's say more, for example, more women in engineering, like you've already done, as I've heard, or even just talking openly about the topic. I've had the experience that people are a little bit scared to talk about it, but if you bring up the topic, then people will be more open. But also then actively supporting underrepresented groups, so using role model events, mentoring discussions and things like that. So what I wanted to say about underrepresentation, you have this, I think you have this cycle. So it starts with discrimination. So I don't know how many of you girls here today have experienced being told not to be bossy. So bossy is one of the words that I hate, because bossy is a negative word and it only gets used for girls or women. So if a girl has an opinion, she gets told not to be bossy, whereas a boy gets praised for being a good leader. Or even just giving girls compliments for their looks. So I play the trumpet as well. It happens to me regularly that I play, and people come up to me afterwards and tell me how good I looked, and they go to my colleague and tell him how well he played. And I would like to be seen to be a good trumpet player, and I don't care about how I look. And so girls get compliments for their looks, or boys get praised for being strong and clever. Boys get given toys that improve their coordination. Advertising makes women feel like they should be cooking and cleaning. There are many role models in our world who are not necessarily, they're quite, let's say, sexist or racist. There's things that happen, black lawyers get mistaken for defendants. So there's all types of different discrimination. But the desire to belong and please is a fundamental human need. We end up changing our behavior. So if people tell us not to be bossy all the time, then we probably will change and stop being bossy. Or if people praise us for our looks, we'll probably make more effort to look nice. This means that these things get developed more. So if a boy gets praised for being clever, he will probably be encouraged to work on his cleverness even more. And actually, this even changes your genes. There's this field called epigenetics, which actually activates certain genes. And this actually then changes your career choice. So you choose your career based on your skills and expectations. This leads to strengthening the stereotypes and prejudices. So this is how underrepresentation feeds more underrepresentation. What I'm saying is that it's the responsibility for all of us to break this cycle and stop this happening, especially when we're talking about digitalisation, because digitalisation can lead to lots of automation, right? So if things happen automatically, we stop thinking. So I think we have to make an extra effort to think and break this cycle. Okay, and then the third point is sustainability. So the challenge here is, how do we digitalize the economy in a long-lasting green and organic way? And so one way to do this is to focus on long-term solutions and processes rather than quick fixes. So, lots of, let's say, the capitalist society is pushing us to find quick fixes. But if you actually focus on more long-term generalized processes, it's more sustainable. So an example with let's say with the data standards, if you develop an open source data analytics framework, which is generalized so anybody can use it, that is helping people on the long term, rather than just developing one solution for one customer. It might not give you the biggest profit at first, but it'll be more sustainable in the long run. But also focusing on building skills of the staff is sustainable, because it means you can offer the same solutions over the long term. The second part is there should be circular economy models for the key wind turbine components, like the blades and the generators. And there should be some policy and regulatory frameworks to actually allow companies to use these models and innovate productively. So one example is wind turbine rotor blades. There are solutions that are being developed using more sustainable materials, but they're more expensive and they're less well performing. So unless the companies get some policy or regulatory support to do that, they're not going to do it because they want to make money. Okay, so that's the end. Those are basically those three challenges. And what I want to tell you about now is a little bit about how we're trying to overcome these three challenges by exploiting the opportunities at my university, Olst. And so the first thing, the data and knowledge sharing, we have three quite exciting projects. One of them is developing some smart, non-intrusive Internet of Things measurement technology. So this is a picture actually of our pressure measurement device for wind turbine blades. And this is including a digital twin framework, which we want to generalize for the whole wind energy industry. We're also developing some open source machine learning and AI frameworks for wind turbine data analysis. And then we're developing some digital twin and decision support systems generalized for all wind turbines. And on the second topic of inclusion and collaboration, I founded the Swiss Wind Energy R&D Network, which is just trying to get people to talk to each other. And then we've got a project called We Do Wind and We Do Clean Tech, which I'd like to spend the last 10 minutes talking about. And it was already mentioned, I'm the chair of the diversity committee of the European Academy of Wind Energy. We actually have a webinar taking place in a few weeks, which I'll put the link in the chat in a minute if you're interested in giving your inputs on diversity to that. And then the third one, sustainability. So we actually did a project where we developed biomaterials for rotor blades. So we made these these are just 1 meter long rotor blades. We made them out of flax plants. So it's a type of plant which has got a very strong structure. And we did some life cycle analyses about the sustainability of using those materials in blades. So on to the topic of We Do Wind. So this We Do Wind project is basically bringing all these challenges together. And it's actually the thing that I would like to talk to you about working together on in the future. So we're building a centralized ecosystem for accelerating innovation and learning through inclusive knowledge sharing based around real wind energy challenges. So we're actually bringing together people, data, and solutions all over the world in win-win situations. So that means most people who have the data, so the wind turbine company, the wind farm owners, they need solutions, they need data analytics, they need improved methods. But the people who are developing these solutions, so let's say the researchers at universities, they need more data, they need real data which they can use to test their analytics. So why not bring these two types of people together and give them a win-win situation where they can actually share their data. And so the idea is to just shift people to more of a collaborative mindset by providing them with a way to collaborate. And the way the ecosystem works is that it's based around this idea of challenges. So I already heard that you're intending to have some challenges, which is why I like what you're doing. And so we want to have challenges coming from the industry, and we want to bring people, solutions, and data together around these challenges. We can also have lectures, webinars, workshops, events around these challenges. But at the end, on the right, this leads to more knowledge sharing, a new collaborative mindset. It leads to improved innovation and learning using the solutions. I've seen your questions. I'm going to answer them at the end. And so I want to tell you a little story about We Do Wind. So in 2020, we carried out some interviews asking if people actually want to come together. And the answer was yes, they do, but they're kind of scared of sharing their data and they don't know what the advantage would be. But we found a company, EDP, which is the 4th biggest wind farm producer in the world. in Portugal. And they basically agreed with us that they would like to get people working together better. And so they actually shared their data, and we defined a challenge, and we launched a digital platform called We Do Wind. And we actually posted this description of a challenge and the data. And so the challenge was to develop solutions for early damage detection of components in the wind farms. And they provided data from 9 of their wind turbines. And then we waited, and then eventually, well, in April, somebody submitted a solution. So they made a video, posted some code, okay, this and describing what the solution is. And actually, by September, we got like 9 different solutions. We had 80 participants from 26 different countries and 28 different research groups, 13 companies. And we're actually currently in the process of writing a collaborative paper. So we're evaluating the solutions, and we're trying to work out what was the added value of these solutions. We've also got some other challenges. So we have 5 other spaces. We have more than 200 participants. One of the spaces we're talking about diversity. The other space we're talking about metadata. We have a few different challenges, a few different spaces. We're actually currently creating a wind energy in Brazil space. And what we've learned is that people having challenges is a really good thing to do, because people are drawn to solving it. And we can kind of make that attractive from both sides. We can create an inclusive culture. So what was really good about this platform is that we got lots of people from all over the world. There's no barrier to taking part. Like, any of you could just take part now if you wanted to. It doesn't require you to be part of any organization or to have any contacts anywhere. You just have to take part. And so that's why I call it inclusive. We can use asynchronous collaboration tools to get everybody heard. That basic asynchronous means we have workshops, but we also have the digital platform where people can write anything down whenever they want, at any time, which suits them. And we can get people like me, so leaders, to bring together a community. We can help them. So if you would like to do this, or have anybody who would like to do this in your area, we can support you by doing that. I think this can help to restore gender equity as well, because we can have some activities which actually are focused just on women, for example. We can have some women-only challenges or activities. And at the end of the day, we want to provide access to clean energy innovation for everyone without bias. We need to define some common structures and schemas in order to do this, to make data sharing more easy. And so I've almost finished. So what we're doing next, we're currently looking for people to take part in this We Do Wind ecosystem. So somebody with a challenge or a solution, or even a space moderator. So if, for example, your institute would be interested in running a Indian space or a space around your activities, we could help you do that. We're also looking for funding in order to spend more time doing this. But I see one of the questions was about megatrends in renewable energy. So what we're also doing parallel is we're actually developing a platform called We Do Clean Tech, which is actually doing the same thing, but with any clean tech topic. So you imagine a series of interacting We Do X systems. So we do wind, we do PV, we do hydrogen, we do grids. And each of these is run by an expert in the field. And it provides social value by providing unbiased access to participation in clean energy innovation. Also helps shifting people to a collaborative mindset. We also want to evaluate the different solutions in a fair, non-biased way. But there's business value as well. So if we enable data sharing and create this win-win situation I told you about, then I think companies will be willing to pay to participate, because at the end of the day, they get better data science solutions. And so Oh, I actually don't have anything more about We Do Clean Tech. So maybe I'll just quickly tell you a bit more. So we're currently building this up. If you're interested in working together on a not more general renewable energy topic or clean tech topic, we'd be interested in talking further. I just want to make a special conclusion for International Women's Day. So the special conclusion is digitalization is one of the most important topics in wind energy today. Many of these challenges revolve around people, collaboration, culture. Most engineers and technical-minded people are either not aware of this need or they don't want to change their focus away from purely technical work. This means there's a massive gap and a massive opportunity for us. And we need to combine bottom-up and top-down approaches. So top-down means you get people to change policy or change the rules. Bottom-up means I'm just going to go and do something now. And so this is what We Do Wind or We Do Clean Tech is doing. We're trying to just get people involved, any of you, all of you, and try to work out what you want. So I think there's this big gap. On the left, we have this island of engineers and scientists. On the right, we have this island of let's say, psychologists and sociologists. And there doesn't seem to be much talking between them. So I think that getting engineers to think more about these collaborative topics is the opportunity that we all have and maybe can contribute to. And so I've finished, but I wanted to ask you another question. If you want to answer the second question now on the list, how could you be encouraged to share more data and knowledge? So if you had some sort of secure platform, if somebody paid you some money to do it, if you could see an obvious business advantage, if you could access an exciting research community by doing so, if you had some clear data standards provided to you, if you had some open source code providing to you. Can you take part in that? Is there any, I see only 2 people have taken part. Can you see that second question? I guess you can now, I saw someone else has taken part. So 3 people say they would like to get access to an exciting research community. Nobody wants to earn any money. That's because you're all academics or students. Anyone else want to take part? Oh, one more person. We can keep that on the screen while we... So I realize we've only got 8 minutes left now for discussion. Shall I answer these questions that have come up already?
Gauri? Question answer session?
No, sir.
Yeah.
Ma'am, so we have a question from Mr. Prashant Revankar. He's asking about what is more competitive, wind or solar PV in a global energy business perspective. He also asks, we come across wind energy technologies like bladeless wind generation. So how do they fare against conventional versions?
So if wind or solar is more competitive, I don't know the exact answer, but the only thing I can tell you is that it's extremely variable according to location. So if you look at the levelized cost of electricity of wind and solar, they both vary a massive amount due to the location. And depending on where you are, sometimes wind wins and sometimes PV wins. But the second question, this bladeless wind turbine, I mean, if you really want to know my answer, no. I know about these bladeless wind turbines. You have many people trying to develop new types of wind energy technology, and they're nearly all worse than existing. So bladeless wind technology doesn't make any sense to me at all. Maybe some of you have heard of airborne wind energy. So it's like a kite on a string, and the energy is being produced on a drum rotating, and the kite is moving further out. This is a topic which lots of people are looking into, which I think could be interesting. It's quite clever because it gets the higher wind speeds at the higher up, but it doesn't require much material. So it kind of makes sense. But the difficulty is the air traffic control regulations. So you're flying 400, 500 meters high, and you're going to have problems with air traffic control. So this is a thing that's being investigated at the moment. Is that an okay answer?
Yeah, yes. I think I got the point. Yeah, yeah.
And then the second question, yeah, I mean, I don't know that much about other renewable energy sectors, really.
Probably I feel my questions are slightly deviating from the topic of digitalization of wind energy sector, or slightly away from the theme what we took for discussion. Yeah,
and also I'm not really. Yeah. I don't know much about non-wind energy things.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Sarah, there are a couple of questions from Professor Dheeraj. He is asking, what was the size of the biomaterial-based wind turbine blade?
Oh, they were just 1 meter. So the blade, we built three blades, which were 1 meter long. So it's just a small 1 kilowatt wind turbine. We are actually trying to find funding to build bigger ones. We have a 6 kilowatt wind turbine, which has got 6 meter blades, which we want to build, but it's quite expensive. So we're trying to look for funding to do that at the moment. But it's not that easy because, as I said, the material is worse. The companies are not interested in using worse performing materials yet. Until somebody forces them to be more sustainable, they won't be interested. Okay.
So you mentioned about the VIDO wind program in Brazil.
Yeah.
So he's asking how could we strengthen the collaboration with India or our institute in particular?
Yeah, so what we can do is we can try to draft a space for, you have to decide what the space should be. Should it be wind energy and should it be trying to improve wind energy in India in general? Or should it just be trying to give your students access to European companies? You kind of have to think what you want to achieve. And then we can make a space which has some challenges or some discussion topics. And then we invite our contacts to take part. And then we moderate a workshop once a month. And we find some companies to have some challenges. And we try to do that. We have to find funding to do that. And we're currently in the process of writing a funding proposal. And so if you're generally interested in the idea, I can get my colleague who's leading this project to get in touch, and we can just have a meeting to discuss the idea further.
Sure, Dr. Sarah.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Mr. Vishwanath Kulkarni has a question. He's asking, what is the potential growth and innovation in sea wind farms?
Offshore wind farms.
Sea wind farms, yes.
Offshore wind farms. Yeah, in India, I don't know, but generally there's a massive growth. So if you look at, sorry, I could have shown some of these numbers, but in Europe, there's a very large amount of growth offshore at the moment, and also on the east coast of the US and in Brazil. This is a big topic in Brazil. They're pushing for massive amounts. I can't really tell you any numbers right now, but large. I hope that's okay for an answer.
Dr. Sarah, there's one last question.
Yeah.
Is asking, they need some more clarity on how the digitalization of wind energy is planned and how it is different from the data sharing method implemented in a certain Makani-kite powered wind energy project.
So I think that was maybe two separate questions. So the one about digitalization being planned in industry, I can send you a link for, there's some white papers on the topic. For example, from Wind Europe, that's the European organization there. I'll send you the link. They've got some information about how they're doing it. But in general about Makani, so Makani is an airborne wind energy system which was bought by Google, which failed. And the reason it failed is because, well, it's trying to create electricity on the kite at the top, and it's got a power cable going down to the bottom, whereas the other systems have got the energy production at the bottom created by the rope moving in and out. And I think it's just too difficult to do that. Yeah. So I hope that was helpful. Well, thank you anyway, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to give this talk, and thank you for your questions. Maybe I'll send my email address in the chat, and then you can, if you've got any more questions, please do feel free to contact me.
Yeah, Dr. Sarah, could you quickly reflect on one query I have on the chat box? I'm sorry, I'm unable to reach the Q&A section. A quick comment on the carbon footprint of current wind energy technologies.
There's many studies which show that the overall CO2 emissions from wind energy is the lowest out of all sources. I can also send you a link to that. I talk about it in every presentation that I give about general wind energy. It's the lowest compared to anything else. Like nuclear is quite low as well, but over the entire life cycle, wind energy is extremely low, which is good.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think there are no more questions. So as we near the end of this splendid talk on digitalization of wind energy on the occasion of International Women's Day, we'd like to heartily thank our esteemed guest, Dr. Sarah Barber, for her invaluable time. We also thank the audience for the questions and an interactive discussion. Request all of you to join the next talk in the series on March 16, 2022 by Professor Venugopal Venkatesan from the Institute of Energy Systems in the University of Edinburgh, the United Kingdom. The title of the talk is Ocean Renewable Energy Technologies for Achieving Sustainable Development Goals. The pre-registration link is in the chat box. Thank you.
You can paste Gauri in the chat box, the link. Thank you, Dr. Sarah.
Okay, thank you. I'll be in touch.
Thank you. Yes.
Nice to meet you all.